Well, good morning, everybody. Great to be here. Thanks for coming out. This morning, I'm going to be giving you a presentation with some details about how I hope to get a mandate to unite Albertans so that we can have a united, principled, broad, free enterprise party to defeat the NDP in 2019 and get Alberta back on the right track. As you know, yesterday we had a great launch event in Calgary. We had over 400 people out with 36 hours notice, and last night another 300 people in Grand Prairie apparently that came out on very short notice. Hundreds of folks already demonstrating their support for this project to unite Albertans around common sense free enterprise principles to replace the NDP and get Alberta back on track. And Alberta does need to get back on track because our province is hurting. We have the highest unemployment level in our province in 2 decades. We've gone from being having the lowest unemployment rate in Canada sustainably to the second highest. But this year we have seen more job losses in Alberta than any year since the National Energy Program in the early 1980s. And the reckless economic mismanagement of the NDP is destroying dreams, forcing businesses to close, and causing people to lose hope. Not only that, but this NDP government is throwing away the enormous sacrifices that Albertans made to create the Alberta Advantage. You know, it wasn't easy for this province to balance its budget, to eliminate its debt, and to retain low taxes. Altogether, that was called the Alberta Advantage. And this place became a magnet for wealth creators, job creators, risk takers, investors and entrepreneurs, which is why for so long Alberta has had the highest standard of living and the greatest economic prospects in Canada. And the NDP is throwing all of that away with massive fiscal irresponsibility, already planning to incur $47 billion in provincial debt by the end of their term. And now they're imposing a massive multi-billion-dollar carbon tax on everything that will raise the cost of heating people's homes, of their groceries in the winter. It will be a massive wealth redistribution scheme administered by a huge bureaucracy, and none of this was part of the NDP platform. This must be the single biggest broken promise in Alberta electoral history. This goes straight to the integrity of the NDP government, who have hidden as part of their agenda the imposition of the largest new tax in Alberta's modern history. And of course, they're raising every tax they can, raising taxes on job-creating businesses, raising taxes on wealth-creating individuals, raising now with Justin Trudeau a massive new payroll tax hike. They've raised property taxes, especially on businesses closing, forcing many struggling small and medium-sized businesses to close their doors and lose their dreams. And they're imposing massive new regulations on the Alberta economy with no regard for their economic impact. It is reckless. Now they're announcing the plans to adopt radical new changes to the Alberta education curriculum, changes that I'm sure they intend to implement over the objections of parents, changes I'm sure are not focused on improving actual measurable school outcomes, but on their own political agenda. We have a provincial government that's not standing up for Alberta with respect to our energy industry or indeed against the Trudeau agenda to raise taxes. So we cannot afford, frankly, the next 3 years of NDP government. We don't have a choice, but we must hold them to account. We certainly cannot afford 8 years of NDP mismanagement, because a second NDP term, I think, would do irreversible damage to the entrepreneurial culture and spirit of this province. And so we need to pursue unity to, as I said yesterday, eliminate the risk of a second NDP term. And division amongst free enterprise Albertans is damaging Alberta. As long as two free enterprise parties compete with each other, there is no clear path for either of them to achieve majority government. I mean, they can both continue to tell each other or themselves that somehow the other party is going to go away and somehow they will emerge as essentially the only option for free enterprise-oriented voters. But that hasn't happened. We've seen this movie before. We went through this at the federal level. In my view, a united free enterprise political force in Alberta is not a question of if, but when. And my view is that when must be before May of 2019. You know, in the last election, May of 2015, some 15 of the New Democratic MLAs, the margin of their majority, were elected because of vote splitting with extremely narrow margins. And this division also means that the Progressive, Conservative, and Wild Rose parties are competing for scarce resources, for volunteers, for activists, for candidates, for public attention, for financial resources, and they're spending far too much time fighting each other rather than focusing on the huge threat to our province's economy and prosperity in the NDP government. Now, as I made clear yesterday, I have enormous respect for my friends in both the Progressive Conservative and Wild Rose Alliance. I mean, for example, the Progressive Conservative leader, Rick McIver, was my federal Conservative Association president. He is a close friend and fellow traveler. I have friends in the Wild Rose Party. And that is the perspective that we from the federal party bring, is we do not understand this division. We settled this 13 years ago in a much more complicated, challenging environment. And so what we see is that neither of the two provincial free enterprise parties is going away. Both of them have their strengths, and both of them have their challenges and limitations. So take, for example, the Wild Rose Party. It is a real and potent electoral force. People in the Progressive Conservative Party who want to wish that away are not tuned into reality. But so the Wild Rose Party occasionally demonstrates relatively high levels of public support over the past several years, on 3 occasions polling above 40%. But in every instance, that has slid back down, demonstrating a electoral support that is not durable. The Progressive Conservative Party still has durable support, and between a fifth and a quarter of Albertans consistently indicate that they are loyal to the Progressive Conservative Party. In fact, and it really is about the party's brand and its tradition, a great tradition in Alberta public life, a tradition to which I paid great homage yesterday, the party of Peter Lougheed, the party of Ralph Klein, that helped in many ways to build this province and create the Alberta Advantage. And that's why the Progressive Conservative Party continues to have the loyalty of many Albertans focused on the party. As you can see here, in the last election, about 4 out of 10 of its supporters said they were supporting the PCs because of the party brand. But I think here's the point. You've got these two parties, both with their strengths, both with their limitations, and right now they're not going anywhere. Right now where they're going is to propose a risk of a vote split in May of 2019, re-electing a economically catastrophic NDP government. And so it's time to turn the page. It's time to replicate here in Alberta at the provincial level the enormous success of the federal coalition created by visionaries, Stephen Harper and Peter MacKay, in 2003. Two leaders who were focused with optimism and confidence on the future rather than with bitterness and anger to the past. It's time to turn the page because we do need to learn from the mistakes of the past. We understand that the reason for the division amongst free enterprise parties in Alberta is because as I said yesterday, many people in the Wild Rose Party felt, frankly, many people in the Progressive Conservative Party and others not involved felt that the PC party had departed in recent years from its best values and traditions. So we need to understand and respect that. We need to learn from those lessons, but we must not find ourselves captured by the past. We must move forward. As somebody said to me in Grand Prairie last night, you can see a whole lot more through the windshield than through the rearview mirror. Our focus should be on electing Conservatives, not fighting one another, because we're always stronger when we stand together. And as I say, we can and should replicate the strong and durable coalition of the Conservative Party of Canada. Let me just tell you a little anecdote. About a month ago, the Federal Conservative Party had its convention in Vancouver. We had, I think, about 3,000 delegates, including several hundred Albertans, a good chunk of whom were provincially Wildrose supporters, and a good chunk of whom were provincial PC supporters, and a lot of whom had opted out of provincial politics for a very long time. But there we were all together. Nobody was wearing a Wildrose or a PC label. We were under the same party brand, a banner, the same leader, the same policies, working together with no division or rancor or even really debates. It is a party, a coalition that has come together with unity of purpose. And if this was possible at the federal level with 13 jurisdictions and 2 official languages, with far more history and bitterness and division, if we were able to do this 13 years ago nationally and win 3 federal elections and be the longest-serving Conservative government since John Macdonald in the 19th century, we sure as heck can do it here in Alberta. Now let me show you that right here, the relative strength of, if you could go back, the relative strength of the Conservative federal coalition in Alberta. In October of last year, the Conservative Party of Canada won nearly 1.2 million votes, and about 60% of the popular vote in its worst election in a decade. And that compares to 360,000 voters for the Wildrose Party and 413,000 for the Progressive Conservative Party. This is to say that the federal Conservative voting coalition is 3 times larger than that of either provincial party. And that is the point I made yesterday, that the unity project about which I am speaking is about a lot more than just PC plus Wildrose. It's those 2 constituencies plus hundreds of thousands of other Albertans who have been disappointed and have avoided provincial political engagement in recent years. And so the 1.2 million federal Conservative voters in 2015 should be seen as the kind of coalition that we can construct here in Alberta. Let me break this down with a little granularity just to demonstrate how effective this coalition is. By city, for example, in Calgary, last year, the Conservative Party of Canada won over 300,000 votes, compared to about 200,000 for the 2 provincial parties combined. Again, we're 1/3 larger. And in Edmonton, you see the difference even more starkly. The federal Conservative candidates here garnered in this city nearly 200,000 votes, more than twice as many as voted for the ostensibly free enterprise provincial parties. Now, let's go back a little bit in history and compare this coalition. In 2008, again, 820,000 federal Conservative voters versus 560,000 provincial free enterprise voters. And again, you'll see the same kind of spread in the 2 major cities that year as well. Now, I'm here in Edmonton for a reason. This is the largest city in Alberta, city in which I lived for several years, the capital city, until the recent downturn under the NDP government, an economic dynamo, an incredibly diverse and dynamic city, and a city in which the Conservative Party of Canada has done extraordinarily well, in which it has won a majority of the vote in every election that it has contested. So let's look at the comparative results in the city of Edmonton. Here provincially, you can see that the free enterprise provincial parties combined lost every seat in the city and lost in virtually every part of Edmonton. But last year, just a few months later, the federal Conservative Party won most of the votes in Edmonton and the vast majority of seats. All of this is just to illustrate the power of working together. Synergy, the idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's what unity brings. So let me then present to you my 5-point plan to achieve unity amongst Albertans. First of all, For the Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta to elect a leader who has a strong mandate to unite free enterprise Albertans into one party, that's the project that I will formally be launching on October the 1st when that campaign begins. On second point, to immediately negotiate a framework agreement between the Progressive Conservative Party and the Wild Rose Party immediately following the March 18th PC leadership. And this is not complicated. This is exactly what we did in the federal merger process in 2003. Discussions could either happen directly between the leaders or indirectly through groups of emissaries, and this would lead to a framework for the creation of a new united party. Thirdly, that framework agreement, once achieved, would be submitted to the grassroots members, presumably of both parties. Certainly I can commit to you the PC party, for their approval in an open and democratic referendum. Fourthly, should the members endorse the framework agreement for a united party with a clear majority, the party would then go on to be constituted legally, financially, and politically in mid-2017. And then and of course, a leadership election would be held to choose the new leader of the United Party. And then finally, in 2018, this new, vibrant, broad, and diverse coalition would go about recruiting, I hope, a kind of dream team of candidates, competent, principled, intelligent, ethical candidates to form a government in May of 2019. Let me break this down to a little more specificity, in what I see the timeline to be. Now, let me offer a caveat. Obviously, there will be unexpected events that will intervene, and all of us working towards unity will have to be pragmatic and flexible about this, not rigid or doctrinaire. But I really do believe that people are actually looking for a clear plan, and that's what I'm trying to provide. When I go around this province, what people say, they want this to happen, they're waiting for some leadership to articulate how to make it happen, and a plan to get us from the current division to future unity. And so the way I conceive of this plan is that, again, on March 18th, 2017, hopefully being elected leader of the Progressive Conservative Party with a mandate to pursue unity. Then that spring, pursuing the framework agreement discussions with the Wild Rose Party. And incidentally, I was very pleased to hear my friend and former colleague Brian Jean's remarks last night, indicating he would be open to this approach from a PC leader who has a unity mandate. Then in the summer of 2017, there would be a wide open debate and a grassroots referendum, I'm certain, in both parties. And I think it'll probably be a raucous debate, and there'll be every point of view. And in that debate, let me be clear, those who are concerned or skeptical about unity will have a voice. I understand the legitimate concerns that some of those folks have. And we don't want to shut down the diversity of opinions about the future of free enterprise politics in Alberta. We want to invite all of those voices to be heard and to have a vote in the summer of 2017. Should that then be successful, we would proceed to constituting the new party, having a founding convention, registering legally, and then I believe likely in the winter of 2017, 2018, we would then have the leadership election for the new united party, and of course then have approximately a year to prepare to win the 2019 election. Now, as I said, there are some people who are opposed to the concept or the principle of unity, and we respect those views. It's inevitable. But I would remind those friends of mine that we are trying to build a big tent, not a pup tent. Now, some people have said, the Progressive Conservative Party convention in Red Deer a few weeks ago rejected the prospect of unity, and therefore, why am I even talking about it? Well, friends, in the late 1990s, early 2000s, the federal Progressive Conservative Party consistently rejected overtures to pursue unity at the federal level. But when Peter MacKay sat down and negotiated that agreement with Stephen Harper and submitted it to the grassroots membership, not the party insiders, but the tens of thousands of ordinary grassroots members, it was endorsed by a margin of 92%. I would note that some of the 8% who said no, who opted out of the hugely successful federal coalition, are now in Alberta refusing to pursue unity discussions. History repeats itself. My point is this. Yes, it's true that, I see political coalitions as a kind of concentric circles, at the heart of which you have a few dozen caucus members, members of the governing body of the party, and outside of that you have a few hundred key activists, the kind of people that show up at conventions like the one recently in Red Deer. And these are important views and people because they're really central to the functioning of a political party. But beyond that, you have the general membership. And a survey conducted by the Progressive Conservative Party of its membership this summer indicated a clear majority would support a united party. Beyond that, of course, you have the party's electorate. In the case of the Progressive Conservative Party, 410,000 Albertans, the two-thirds of whom tell pollsters that they would support a united party. And beyond that, you have all of the people who used to vote for the Progressive Conservative Party, but for one reason or another have stopped doing so, including I would define it as the Federal Conservative Coalition, 1.1 million voters who we know are overwhelmingly for unity, and then, of course, the broader electorate. So I guess I would say to those who are afraid of change, to those who want to look to the past rather than the future, to those who want to emphasize what divides us rather than what unites us, please consider the broader constituency of conservatives, of free enterprisers, and of Albertans. Don't allow this to be a closed, narrow, limited debate of insiders. Let's open it up. That's what my candidacy really represents. I'm trying to break through a monopoly that the insiders have had on this debate in Alberta to give a voice to ordinary free enterprise Albertans and grassroots members. You'll see here that recent polling indicates 64% of progressive conservative voters say they would support a united party, and 68% of Wildrose supporters. And this is in the absence of an actual concrete proposal. These are people just taking a flyer on a hypothetical scenario. As we saw in 2003, when Peter MacKay endorsed the merger agreement and the number went to 92%, I have every confidence we would see similar levels of support in this process. And finally, as you can see here, very recent polling indicates that a united free enterprise party would clearly win the next provincial election and essentially would have a lead of 2-1 over the NDP. Again, still without any definition of that party, so you can see 20% of Albertans would be undecided. I believe they would ultimately support the new united party, and that it would replicate the coalition of the federal Conservatives, which is about 2/3 of the electorate in Alberta. Let me close by saying, as I did yesterday, that for this to happen, it is essential that we avoid the mistakes of what happened here at the legislature in December of 2014. Albertans will not accept secret backroom deals that dictate what kind of democratic choice we have. That is why I am offering this grassroots guarantee to make it absolutely clear that a new united party will only be created if approved by a clear majority of grassroots party members in a fair, open referendum. This grassroots democracy is absolutely non-negotiable. I was just going to sign this, and I'll take your questions. Sorry. I got to sign the guarantee, Graham, so.